All right. Well, welcome, welcome. Happy Thursday. This is Camille Ferguson. I am a certified regenerative health practitioner, detox specialist, clinical iridologist, and clinical herbalist. And today I am going live for week 2 of Thriving Thursdays. So what is Thriving Thursdays? Thriving Thursdays is just a brief Zoom where I'm going to be teaching all about regenerative health. What is regenerative health? Well, regenerative health is a pioneering field. Most people haven't heard of it because it's a fairly new field in the health world, in the natural medicine world. And I came to regenerative health during my own journey of suffering. And when I was pregnant with my 4th child, we found out some unfortunate news that he wasn't doing well in utero, and that manifested as pain in my body. The trauma of that experience set in, and for years and years, I experienced high levels of chronic pain. And I'm very naturally minded. I've always been the mother that's like doing tinctures and herbs and salves and dietary protocols with their kids. And in my own personal experience, I just wasn't getting the answers that I was looking for in the Western care model. And it was through my own suffering and my own health that I found myself really praying for a solution. And that came to me in the form of regenerative superfoods. And I didn't know that my health was going to start to turn on an upward slope at that time when I started incorporating superfoods into my body, but it really changed the internal terrain of my body and the chemistry in my body. So today I'm going to be talking more about that and just kind of the foundations of regenerative health and what that really means. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the dietary aspect of regenerative health. This is a huge piece of regenerative health. In regenerative health, we are really correcting the internal terrain or the internal environment of the body. And what this looks like is changing our food intake from more of this, Western culture, standard American diet to a more man's food, like species type of food. These are our healing foods. And so today I'm going to be going over some basic principles on how you can start to turn back time and reverse conditions in your body just based on the food that you're eating. And so if you're on Zoom, I'm going to be sharing my screen here. If you're on Facebook, I will put these in the chat when I'm done with the live so that you have these documents here. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I hope everybody's having a great day today. Thank you so much for being here. All right. So let's see here. I want to make sure everybody can see my screen. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can see my guests on the Zoom today. Can one of you gals hop off and just tell me if you can see my screen? Okay, I'm sharing a food pH chart. Hop off, Mio, because I can't see it. Okay. That's all right. Okay, that's okay. So first off, I actually want to share a document that's called Eating for Your Species Type. And so this really
Sorry,
is where
Camille. Just wanted to let you know I can see your screen. I'm driving, so I couldn't come on.
Okay, thanks, Tamina. Great. So eating for our species type is really getting back to the basics of humanity, of mankind. And this is this may be mind-blowing information for some of you because this is not taught in allopathic care or in the mainstream model of dietetics. And so eating for our species type really means what is going to be best for our digestive system, the type of enzymes that our body produces to break down foods, And each species has a different type of digestive system. So I want to just start briefly with carnivore. So carnivore is all the rage right now. Carnivore diet. People are reversing things like autoimmune with the carnivore diet. And carnivores have sharp teeth. They have fangs. All of their teeth are sharp so that they can shred and rip apart their meat. They have claws so that they can shred and tear apart their prey. They kill their prey. They eat their prey right after it's died. So they eat their prey, basically fresh. Carnivores have a very acidic saliva in their mouth. They have an acidic digestive system, and their digestive system is approximately 5 feet long. And so from the time that they're eating this raw flesh that is optimal for their species type, it takes a short amount of time for it to pass through the digestive system, 2 to 4 hours. And their body is able to break down that flesh, and they are able to receive immediate energy from that. It is optimal for their species type. Now on the, just kind of going down the chart here, the omnivore, like a bear, for example, is an omnivore. Bears, they eat flesh. They also eat nuts and berries and seeds and some vegetables, and they harvest their food. And, they're more like, they eat from the wild. And so bears have a different type of tooth structure. They have a different type of saliva structure. And their digestive system is about 3 times the length of their body. So let's think of a bear. I mean, they're quite large. So maybe 15 to 20 feet long. And again, that diet is very specific to that species type. If you were to feed a bear, say, processed macaroni and cheese, they're not going to do well. Let's just think about that, right? And then we've got the herbivore. The herbivore is more like a horse or a cow, and they thrive on vegetables or grass, basically. And their teeth they're smooth, they're flat, and they're used to just grind and chomp down and break down the grass. Now, a frugivore is going to be your primate species. So think apes and monkeys. The frugivore, they have an alkaline saliva to break down their food in their mouth, and their digestive system is also alkaline, with the exception of the stomach and part of the intestinal system. Now, the frugivore's digestive system is 36 to 40 feet long. And the optimal diet for a frugivore is primarily fruit. And they live in the tropics. They can climb a tree and pull down bananas or mangoes or, whatever. They do eat some seeds, some insects, and some nuts. And their teeth are more of this flat type of tooth structure with some incisors to, break down to chomp down on those nuts and whatnot. Now, the human is most like a frugivore. Our digestive system is exactly the same as the frugivore. The acid or the pH in our mouth is exactly the same. Our pH is actually very alkaline in our mouth. And so it's used to really break down fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Our digestive system is also about 40 feet long. Now let's kind of go back to the beginning of the spectrum. Because so many people are eating this carnivore diet, what happens is because meat breaks down so easily in a carnivore system, it's got the perfect acids to break it down, and it digests quite quickly. Humans do not have the same type of digestive enzymes and digestive physiology as, say, a cat or a tiger. Our digestive system is long, and it takes a very long time for meat to process and digest. In fact, it takes between 17 and 36 hours for meat to process through our bodies. And what happens in the process of that is that undigested meat in the tract, in the digestive system, it will start to putrefy instead of breaking down. Our body just doesn't have the capacity to break down meat. Now we have adapted. A lot of people say, well, what about the cavemen, or, what about people in Alaska? Yes, our body is capable of adapting, but eating optimally for our species type is going to be more towards the frugivore diet. So your fresh fruits, your fresh vegetables, some seeds, some nuts, a little bit of, a little bit of protein. I don't know too many people that actually eat insects other than, in other parts of the world, but that's not normal for Americans. And so to eat optimally for our species type, we want to be eating these high, I like to call them high vibrational foods. These are foods that really support our body to thrive and are easiest on our body's digestive system. And so when we're eating this style of diet, our body is able to rest. We're not putting so much pressure in our digestive system just to break down a heavy meal. And the interesting thing, I'm not going to get too deep into our adrenal glands today, that will be another call, but our adrenal glands actually have to secrete cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And I know that is a buzzword out there. A lot of people are, worried about high levels of cortisol, because when your cortisol levels are high, then you start to have inflammation in the body, things like bloating, gas, even like stomach aches or digestive disorders. And, we don't want to be in this high stress state all the time. It's important that we have cortisol because it does help to bring down, bring our hormones down and regulate our hormones when we are in fight or flight. It's really important that our body is secreting cortisol at the proper times, but we don't want to be going into fight or flight when we're just trying to break down a meal. So optimally, we're, eating for our species type, most like a frugivore, is going to be the most beneficial. And in regenerative health, this is where we really take people, is started to change their diet. My favorite way to get people started is start with fresh fruit in the morning, because fruit is easiest to digest. It doesn't require high levels of digestion. I mean, in fact, fruit breaks down in about 30 minutes from start to finish. So it helps to clean you out. It helps to detox your cells. And fruit, when it's mixed with ptyalin, which is the digestive enzyme in our mouth, and oxygen, it turns into ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is the scientific term for cellular energy. And so it's what gets us going during the day. So in regenerative health, we really are trying to change the internal environment of the body through diet. That's the easiest point of entry for people. And so when our body is in this state of rest rather than digesting all the time, then it can begin to heal. And we can actually start to peel away layers of toxins from the cells just by eating foods that are correct for our species type. So I want to go into another screen share here about chemistry of food. And this is another big piece of regenerative health, is eating more of an alkaline style chemistry of food. And again, that's going to be more towards our species type, your fresh fruits, your fresh vegetables. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen here and go through this. And a lot of times people come to me and they say, well, they look at this food chart and they say, well, pumpkin seeds, those are an acidic food. And so I want to just start by talking about what's left behind in food. And this is what's really important at dictating the internal environment of our body. So when you consume a food, it leaves behind a mineral ash. And it's those minerals that are key for regulating our nervous system, communicating signals throughout our body, building bones, building, healthy tissue in the body. And so it's what's left behind from those foods is what is going to dictate the internal terrain of the body. So for example, lemons are extremely acidic, but when you consume them, they actually leave behind an alkaline ash. And that's what we're really trying to achieve. The ash is what is going to dictate the internal terrain. So we ideally want to be around, like, our blood needs to be a 7.4. at all times. If we move beyond that, then we actually won't live. We have to we have to maintain our blood at 7.4. But where most people are eating is more of an acidic diet. This is the standard American diet or the SAD diet. So if you think about the food pyramid, at the bottom is all these grains, and then you have your meats, then you have your vegetables, and you have your fruits, and then some, like sweet treats and stuff at the top. And we really are flipping that in regenerative health because we want to make sure that we're consuming foods that are leaving behind a high mineral ash. So things that are going to be most acidic are your refined carbohydrates. So refined salt, refined sugar, refined wheat, coffee, meat, lunch meat, processed meat, beef, fish, pastas, breads, all of these things that, right, we were really promoted on the grocery store shelves. And those types of foods, they actually, when they break down, they leave behind a phosphorus ash as well as a chlorine ash and sulfur. And if you think about it, like those things are very hot and corrosive. Like, for example, you see a car stranded out in a field and it's been rusting over time, right? That's a corrosion happen, that's decomposition happening because of the environment around the car. And the same things happens to our cells. When we're consuming high levels of acidic foods, it starts to increase inflammation in the body and increase heat. And that's actually the root of disease or dis-ease, is the state of inflammation or dehydration. What happens when we have a high acid diet, we're also experiencing the need for parasites, because when our cells are surrounded by a lot of heat, inflammation, and mucus, these are all things where life cannot live. And so parasites come in and they start to clean up the mess. And we do need some parasites in our body, but we do not need an overgrowth. And so this is where we want to flip the scale and bring in more healing and alkaline and cooling foods. And so those are going to be foods like your fresh fruits, your fresh vegetables, some different types of seeds and grains, like quinoa is great. Even some types of potatoes are going to be more on the alkaline side, kind of right there in the middle. The highest alkaline forming foods are your lemons, your melons, your mangoes, papaya, kelp from the sea, different types of herbs, superfoods like wheatgrass, cayenne. And then we have other foods like teas, ginger, garlic, raw honey, sprouted seeds, chia, asparagus, carrots, kale, bananas, avocados. I mean, there's just a huge list here of things that are more alkaline forming. And so that's what we really want to pay attention to, is what is going to leave behind the most minerals when we're consuming our food, and what's going to be the coolest thing for our body to consume, to break down, any kind of heat or congestion in the body. So those are kind of the scientific things of why we eat this way in regenerative health, because we want to bring the body into a state of rest. And it's really quite simple. When we start to change the internal terrain of the body is actually capable of repairing and regenerating itself. But this is information that's not taught by doctors. It's not taught by your naturopath, your functional medical doctor. They're not speaking to this. In fact, a lot of those medical professions are teaching you to eat a lot of meat, which puts the body at a higher risk for inflammation. And one thing that I want to talk about around this, when it comes to our internal terrain, is when the body is too hot or inflamed, the body will protect itself. So the body will use a couple of different components that are actually found in the body to cool itself down. So one is calcium. Calcium is a very alkaline buffering agent. And the body will pull calcium from your bones and connective tissues. So things like your veins and your arteries, your fingernails, your hair. If you experience like hemorrhoids or spider veins, in osteopenia and osteoporosis, these are all conditions where the body is pulling calcium out of the bones and connective tissues to cool itself down. So you may see somebody that's actually quite thin, and you think, oh, wow, they must be in great health. But most of the time, their body is actually having to pull calcium to buffer down that hot, inflamed environment because of these acid forming foods. Another component the body will use is fat. Fat is also a very alkaline component. And when somebody is inflamed and has, a lot of congestion around the cells, body does not want to be in that type of environment. So the body will make fat to capture toxins. And this is what we see in obesity. There's an epidemic of obesity happening in this country, and I feel like if we just made a shift in our diet to eat more of this species type diet that's right for us, that we can optimally digest and bring down the inflammation in our body, I think that there would be a huge turnaround in human health, and especially American health. And so the other buffering agent that the body will produce is cholesterol. And it's not uncommon that people are on, statins these days to help to control cholesterol levels. And when there's high cholesterol levels, there's high damage in the body. So the body, being so brilliant, it wants to cool itself down. So it'll use the liver. The liver will start to produce more cholesterol. The adrenal glands have to get involved with regulating cholesterol. And all of that is just to bring down the environment that's too hot. And so these are just some tools that I really want to hopefully inspire you to make some changes in your own health. Maybe you're dealing with a health condition yourself, and just by making some gentle and gradual shifts, like I don't ever encourage people just like go eat all fruit. You might get to that point if you're working with a regenerative health practitioner and you're really trying to peel back layers and remove chronic conditions in the body. That may be your path. But if you are just trying to improve your health right now, one of the best things that you can do is start your morning with fruit. Fresh fruit first thing. Break your fast with fruit before. If you do it before 8 a.m., your metabolism will actually start to increase. You'll have more energy, you'll have better digestion, less brain fog. I mean, glucose is what our brain functions on. So just more cognitive functioning in the morning. And it also helps to remove layers of toxins out of the cells. So I always encourage people, start your day with fruit. If you like to start your morning with coffee, try drinking a glass of warm lemon water. It actually is very alkaline. Our body stays alkaline at night and our liver detoxes in the morning. And so warm lemon water is the way to go because it helps to flush the liver out. It helps you have a healthy bowel movement in the morning. And then you can wait a little bit and go into your fresh fruit. And that's just a great way to start. If you want to start going a little bit deeper, I would say like eat fruit till noon and make sure that you're just munching on it whenever you feel hungry. And then maybe you could go into a fresh salad. And this is just always a great way to start. I love to just encourage people, if they're not necessarily ready to work with a practitioner, but they want to start feeling better, they want to start having better digestion, having more of like an 80-20 balance can be really optimal for most people. So your fresh fruits in the morning, your fresh vegetables in the afternoon, and then a very sensible dinner, where you're maybe having a little bit of meat, but trying to avoid processed food, trying to cut back on those animal foods and the high grain dishes. I love to always suggest healthy substitutes. So if you're a pasta person, like maybe try like a lentil pasta or zucchini noodles. That's always fun. You could throw a fresh tomato pesto on there or like an avocado pesto. Maybe have a big sweet potato with some avocado on it and like some steamed broccoli or something. Just try to switch it up. And see what kind of more alkaline forming foods you can start bringing into your diet and into your day. And, just see how things start to improve for you. When I started incorporating this type of diet in my life, I noticed that I had a lot more energy, a lot less brain fog. It was easier for me to pass parasites. My skin started to improve. Weight just started to kind of melt off of my body because my body wasn't so burdened and hindered by these acid forming foods. And I was eating foods that made more sense to my species type. So that's what I have for you all today. Thank you so much for being here on Lunch and Learn. And if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. If you're on Facebook, you can put them in the chat, or you can send me a private message. Or if you're on the Zoom here, then I'm happy to just stay on for a few more minutes and answer questions. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and just want to say thank you guys.